Todd, we'll go straight into it. How are plans progressing for next season?
Well, obviously we got off to quite a slow start. I think it was important for the directors to decide what their position was going forward. But ultimately that means we lost maybe the first 2 or 3 waves of recruitment. So things have been going slow. But because they've been going slow doesn't mean that there hasn't been a lot going on behind the scenes. I know you and I haven't done a real talk since the end of the season, but Jeff and I have been hard at work, and recruitment's in a funny old time right now because, like I said, I mean, we missed the players that get put out in January. We missed the players that talking about players returning at the end of the season, and then obviously the first initial wave of interest in Europe. So that kind of puts you a little bit behind the 8 ball. But I mean, there's been extensive talks with all our contacts, and we've had offers out to players. Some have been beaten out. We've lost some to other leagues, and we have some interest as well. So, although they're not progressing at the speed I would like, I'm quite confident that we'll be able to put together a competitive team.
There might have been an assumption from fans and teams around the league that Fife would be competing in the Elite League this season, but behind the scenes there was a lot of decision making to make sure the club could afford it going forward.
Yeah, from what I've been told, that they had to think long and hard about it, and like I said, I mean, I'll argue and fight for every little bit I get behind the scenes, but I'm not spending my money. These guys have to make sure that it was viable and viable for this town. I'm certainly glad that we are in it. I think that the Elite League's been great for ice hockey in this town. I've been a heavy critic of the league, but I think it possibly comes from I know what potential there is out there for what this league has potential to become. But I'm going to hold my tongue and really worry about ourselves. I think it's important that we focus on this club. And like I said, probably in a few interviews earlier, it's important that we get it right. I don't think that we've got it wrong in the past, but we want to progress again. And I know what people want in this town. I've been around long enough. It's not that easy as plucking that player, that magical player out of the air, but we're working hard on it.
At the end of last season, there was obviously big meetings at the league and the restructuring of the league with the two new teams coming in. 2 new teams, a big benefit for the league. And are you happy with the fact that there's going to be this Scottish conference?
I came here with the rivalry between us and Guildford, and I loved it. I had some of my best friends play for that team. A former coach of that team coached against us, and it really bounced back and forth. So great to open that up again. I know that was a big traveling support that we got in Guildford as well. It's nice to see that we'll be facing off again, this season in this arena. And I think it gives people a look at a different couple of clubs, which is fantastic. Conference-wise, I would say I'm split on. I think that for our travel, it's fantastic. I mean, now we're up north here, and the travel and the toll that the travel takes on my players, and I'm sure all coaches feel that way, has been relieved a little bit. My fear is that by, if you want to call them the big stadium clubs playing each other, it only increases their gates and increases their budgets. And teams like us, smaller market, but financially stable team, I just don't want to see the league stretch out to what it was 5 years ago. I thought we really compressed it pretty well, and there was still those steps in the league that we attained to climb. I just hope that this doesn't stretch it out further financially.
At the end of last season as well, between the end of last season and now, there's been a few players from the Fife Flyers roster from last year: Ryan Dingle, Phil Paquette, Shane Owen. They've moved on. What's your kind of take on those?
3 great players, and unfortunately, whether they were going to move on or not, I knew that when Shane was coming to the team, he had aspirations for mainland Europe. He made that clear to me in my recruitment. And I was happy to allow him to use the UK and certainly Fife as a platform to develop. And his honesty from day one, he was straight above the board and told us that. And I mean, his commitment to the game, I mean, I think that it spoke for itself. He was a fan favorite. And we were happy for him we're happy to open up Europe for him. And for me, that's a great recruiting tool. If I can tell players who aren't necessarily have their heart set on setting down in the UK and playing here for their careers, if they want to get their foot in the door in Europe, this is a great place to display your talents and play in all situations. A lot of teams come in and they have role players. I really need my guys to do a little bit of everything. They're certainly not going to be lacking for ice time. And they know that from the talks that we have. And it's a great way for a player with aspirations to possibly get those. On the flip side, talking to Phil and Ryan over the course of the season, they'd been here for a number of years and were quite content. But unfortunately, I was in no position to speak about staying, although certainly I don't want to get into what personal discussions we had with players, but I feel that they possibly would have been looking at a few more guys returning in a Flyers jersey if there wasn't that time required for the team to decide its future in the Elite League. But that's hockey, and players move on, and there's a lot of good players out there. It's just up to us to find them and make sure we put together a good group.
And you also have the end of season meetings with players. I know it was the future of the club in the Elite League was up in the air over the summer, but is there any players from last season, do you think, that will come back for next season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm in talks with a number of them, and I think it's important that I get these things over the line. I mean, sometimes when you have a player fresh off the back of a season and the experience has been very positive, and you show that you're committed to that player and you want him to make this a home, it's often easier to get the signature at the end of the season. It's my personal opinion, and I think that this team should review its recruitment methods. A lot of agents nowadays, it's just the way that hockey is moved, start putting their player lists out in January. So you may have a player playing in France or in Manchester that's getting punted around to the teams, not only in the UK but in Europe. And you may be looking at signing a guy before the season is over. I think it's always been viewed within this team as a little bit of a conflict of interest, but it's just the way that hockey's moved on, and they've never done it before. But I think that we might be missing the boat a bit by not beginning recruitment in January. So not only the end of season meetings, but even into the new year. And that's something that I've definitely brought up in the past, and I think that maybe required to push a little stronger on.
So what is the process now? Is it a case of making contact with people, maybe former players and things as well, trying to get put the net out there as far as you can in North America?
Absolutely, and I've said it a couple times before. We have a good group of alumni that do have contacts over there, and they do send players, and even former players who have played against us in this building know the type of player that we're looking for. So I've been sent a few guys from other former players on other teams as well. So you build up this group of networks, and you do your research and you try your best to attract them not only to the UK but to Kirkcaldy. And it's a very competitive market with 2 extra teams going in the league now. Everybody wants young single guys that are hungry and got a bit of an edge to them. So the market's very competitive, and the pound is not doing as well as it has in the past, which alters salaries as well. And it's all things that maybe not always, people in the front of people's mind. They just want to hear the name that's getting announced by the club. But there's a lot of factors involved, and there's also players out there now that maybe the UK isn't the number 1 on their list, but we've made contact with, and we will pursue for the rest of the summer. A perfect example would be Shane Owen. I talked to him. I talked to his agent. He was hoping for an American Hockey League deal. When that didn't come through, he became available, and we were ready to move instantly because we had kept that line of communication open and shown that interest over the course of number of months. So sometimes it's a process, and believe me, I know that there's probably people out there screaming from the rooftops wanting to know names, but I want to know them first. And we're looking, just like I said, I'm happy, more than happy to be more transparent than I ever have. And as soon as something happens, I'm just going to get it out there, because I think that we are going to depend on our fan base more than ever. And it's not just a fan base walking, paying at the door and coming in and supporting their club. It has to be a whole experience. I'm not great at social media, but I'm learning. I have an assistant coach that is very apt, or he's very good at it. He knows what he's talking about, and working together with each other, we're going to be a lot more open and sharing, and not only about the product on the ice, but what they're doing off ice, and how recruitment's coming along, and just increasing everybody's experience all around. But that's going to take us some time to get that up and running.
What kind of style of player are you looking to bring to Fife, and what kind of team are you hoping to mould for next season?
Well, I think it's going to have to be a combination of all the teams that we've put together. We've had exciting players, like if you look like a Casey Haynes, kind of a player that just worked his ass off every night and left it on the line, and you could tell that he was playing to the crowd. We've had a Matt Nickerson player here before, and love him or loathe him, the place was full. It just was. We need players that are going to work hard and are going to skate. And, I know that sounds like a generic term, but they have to skate all night long and work hard. This is the roots of this community. That's how certainly a lot of my friends that played here plied their trade out on the ice, and people were very responsive to it. And I think that, I'm not looking by no means at a goon squad or anything like that, but I definitely think that we need to be a lot more open to some grit and a bit of edginess, and just team toughness. It doesn't have to necessarily fall on one guy's shoulders, but certainly a team has to know that they have to stick up for one another, and not only in front of your home crowd, but all over town. People have to know that they're going to be in it for not only on the scoreboard, but for a tough match every night. And that's, most coaches would probably say that that's what they're looking to put together. We're competing for a lot of the same players sometimes, so we'll have to be very it's not choosy, but very selective in the individuals we bring in. And I'm going to keep these guys busy this year, because they have to be, they've been out in the community, this, you're in charge of the schools program and stuff, but they have to be a lot more engaging in this community, and that really falls down on everybody in the organization's shoulders to make sure they're out and about, and not only being out and about, that people know about it and see it on a daily basis.
When you mentioned a Matt Nickerson type, is there room for possibly bringing in somebody that is specifically an enforcer into the team?
Yeah, well, Matt Nickerson wasn't strictly an enforcer. He could play. He just came at a time where Dops was wearing a bit of a different hat back then, and unfortunately he probably caught the brunt of it. We hadn't really seen anything like that for certainly a couple years. I think Dundee had one that was quite colorful back in the past, and other teams as well. But you know, for me, the guy has to be able to play, and ultimately I think a lot of these guys can. It's just you have to find the right role for them, and it has to be the right fit. And you know, I'm quite confident that we can. Ultimately, you know, it isn't about one player. One player can be very attractive to a group of individuals paying at the door to come in. But you know, the most important thing is that we have a good cohesion in the room, and a team that wants to play for each other. If you want to play for each other, you want to play for your fans, you want to play for your town, that's ultimately what we're looking to try and build.
When do you believe even the first kind of batch of signings will be getting announced? With the next kind of few weeks, it's still a wee while away?
No, I mean, look, we've had offers out to 4 guys that we've lost. That was very frustrating, but it's just the reality of the sport. I probably don't talk about all the people that we've lost. I have 2 outstanding offers right now that I'm hoping will come through. Very close with a player or 2 from returning next season, or from last season to next. So as soon as it comes out, you know, I know that there are we had a player last year that we signed and we had everything in for and didn't show up. And I know that I don't want to get that thrown at me, because that's the only time that it's happened, and it was unfortunate. I want to get information out. So as soon as I get something out, I'll just be putting it out, and people can pick it apart and dissect it and see if they like what they see.
And kind of looking around the league, how do you make of what's your take on the other teams and how they're shaping their teams for next year?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, you know, obviously initially a lot of players that have been in the league before. There's a few new faces, but there, you know, there's a number of factors involved, and ultimately, when some of the bigger leagues in Europe complete their signings, more and more players start casting their net out further and further about places they're willing to play. I know that usually about this time, do we have 5, 6 guys in the bag, somewhere around there? We're behind right now, but I'm certainly not at the point where we're worried about it or panicking. We've talked to a number of good guys, and just a couple of them weren't even close. But I mean, that's just the reality of the sport that we're in. You have to read the market, and we can only put out offers that we feel is going to work within the budget that we've been given. But you know what, there's a lot of good players out there. There's a lot of good players that we've kept in touch with from years before that we haven't gotten here yet, that you know, we're looking to see what their plans are. And you know, I think that once we kind of get to this threshold of the next 2-3 weeks, we're just going to see more and more players become available.
And just, I think it was announced today actually, the Scottish Cup pre-season tournament between the Scottish sides. Is that a good thing to kind of get the guys in once they come in and get them acclimatised to the Scottish and the British game?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the last couple seasons, we've had exhibition games with some foreign teams and teams that haven't been in our division, and probably not the year before it didn't affect us as much, but last year it certainly did. It would probably be good for us to get a few exhibition games up against the teams that we're going to be playing the majority of the time, and it also allows you to impress upon your players the importance of playing well against these teams. You know, I still hark back to last year, that we did so well down south, and I was so proud of the guys for the performance there. but we just really underperformed in our division. It kind of had flip-flopped itself, which is still a little baffling to us. We've talked about it a number of times, and although I think that if we had a better performance against that Braehead team like we did the previous season, the season would have been viewed as quite a success. But ultimately, the rivalry between Braehead and Fife has grown and grown over the years, and to go 2-6 against them is unacceptable now, and we feel that way in my office as well. So we have to look at ways of performing against all teams, and that comes back to the start of the interview when I said we're really going to focus inward rather than outwards, know what we want to put together, and unleash it on the league and see where we go.
Just finally, what was your own thoughts about coming back for this season, and then obviously Jeff Hutchins been announced as well as your assistant for next season? What can you both achieve next season?
Well, I mean, for me personally, 20 years, it's baffling that it's gone by so fast. So, I mean, I was quite pleased. I was very concerned there, because if we weren't going in, we were really kind of talking about hockey purgatory, because there was just really British ice hockey again seems to be in quite turmoil, and it looks like it's going to take a number of years for it to settle down and sort out. I was very happy to be asked back. I'm honored to be part of this organization, and very proud to have said that I've worked for this group for so long. But ultimately, I mean, and I had said when I was asked to come back, I said, look, some things I'm going to want to get some, it's not concessions, but I like to be transparent. That's the way I carry myself, in my private life. I'm quiet, and I haven't maybe kept up with the times movement with ice hockey, but I mean, I think that my number one goal is for the people who come and support us every week to enjoy their experience and really get something out of it positive, whether it be like we were discussing before we started about the kids excited to see players, the community feel proud of their team, and ultimately winning. And part of that winning, and I know that the directors wanted to make cutbacks, but part of the reason part of one of the things that I wanted when I came back was to work with Jeff again. People don't realize what he has to offer behind the scenes. I think that we got off to a late start last year. I would have hoped that he would have been signed earlier in the summer, but he was signed quite late, and it didn't give us a sense of getting to know each other before we started working together. But that relationship developed over the course of the season, and it's a good working relationship. And I think that he has a lot more to offer this organization. He's incredibly hardworking. He has an incredible amount of contacts, and he just doesn't stop. So, and he's a good, for me, he's, I think the relationship was reciprocal in that I've learned a bunch off him. I think he's learned some stuff off me, and now that we've had a full year of working together, we're going to hope that transfers into the team. We're looking to have things a lot more organized behind the scenes around the team, so when we come into the dressing room, instead of always being so busy and having so many things on our plate, we could come in and it's not socialize with the guys, but certainly allow them to see who we are as people, and our beliefs and what we want to accomplish. And I think the more that our players get to see that and see that message on a consistent basis from a united front, it only transfers from them onto the ice and out to the people watching.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.